In this video we're going to look at configuring the Dropbox and the Turnitin features in Dropbox for originality checking. Now the current policy within ECAE is to not permit something that has a originality score of over 15%. However, certain templates and certain material will increase the level above the 15% quite easily. So we need to set the Turnitin features to comply to what ECAE is expecting, so that it doesn't appear to be giving us too many false positives, and it doesn't show up something that we're going to have to go and investigate unnecessarily. To do this, let's go into Dropbox, and we're going to create our new Dropbox from the Dropbox folder rather than the content area. So we're going to click on New, and let's call this one Settings, which I've already got a name of there. And press Enter, and this tick box here, Enable this folder, this is the one that we need to do to send any Dropbox material through to Turnitin. So enable this folder. We're going to scroll further down. If we're working with categories and grade items, we'll be putting those things in here. That's a separate issue. We'll come back and look at that in another video. What we're interested in at the moment is some of these submission details, how many times, how many files are going to be submitted, and whether all of the submissions are going to be kept or only the most recent one kept. That is, if they're going to be allowed to submit a second one, whether it's going to replace the previous one. At the moment you're probably better off just leaving all kept. We are going to generate originality reports. We've got that left ticked. Allow the submitters to see the originality reports. If you want students to be able to see the material before or after you've been working with them, then you could tick this. At the moment we tend to leave that off. We want to automatically check things after they've been submitted, so it goes through the process, and we need all of these checked here. This one, the user paper database, is the actual institutional one, so that it gets checked against other ECAE documents. We don't need to have the enable grammar check on. You can choose what you want to do with that one. This one here is very important. This allows other files to be checked against this submission. This is the one that would set it to a draft mode or not, such that if we untick this, then a student's work that's put in here is no longer available to be cross-checked by another student's work. So we do want our students' work to be cross-checked against each other, so we leave that one on. But if we were going to set up a trial or a draft system whereby the students were going to submit their material, have a look and see whether it's okay, and then subsequently submit it again, then we would create a Dropbox in which this is unticked. So that's again a different one. We've done all of this, and we want an other options area which should appear down here but won't appear down here until we've saved and closed and re-entered. I don't know quite why it decides to do it this way, but we've saved it. We see this little icon here, which is indicating that we have a plagiarism checking turned on for this Dropbox, and we're going to go back in to edit the folder. And now when we come back down and we scroll all the way down, we find edit other options in a new window, which is what we need to do to be able to go to Turnitin itself. So we're going to click on this. Remember, it was a two-step process. I had to save and close and then go back in to be able to get to this page. And you can see we're now at turnitin.com. And this is not registered to me as a personal user, it's registered to this particular course. The 7607 is a number associated with my Turnitin, with my Desire to Learn course that it's bringing that through for. I'm not going to change anything in here, but what we are going to do is go into the optional settings, and now we get some of the settings that we saw in Desire to Learn repeated in here, which is the dates, the generating of the report. We're going to leave all of that exactly as it is. But the important ones that we want to perhaps have a look at now relate to excluding bibliographic material. That is, if there's anything listed in the end of an assignment in a references area, if it's been correctly referenced, then that will actually generate a similarity report which will put up the percentage. So anything in the references or bibliographic area, If we decide that we don't want that to be counting, and that will bring our score down, which is a good thing, then we're going to tick yes. So I'd like you to come through and tick yes on that one. If they've appropriately quoted material, then we can also exclude that from the plagiarism count. It is appropriately referenced, we're saying, because it's in quotation marks, so we don't want the score to be artificially jumping up and causing us problems, so we're going to tick yes on this one. So what's happening is anything that's been put into appropriate quotation marks won't raise the percentage. Now you will need, while you're reading your assignments, to be checking to see whether the quotation and referencing is being done appropriately. That's a separate check altogether. All this is going to do is say anything that is inside quotation marks is not going to be added to the originality score or the similarity score that Turnitin creates. The other one here is the small matches. Exclude small matches. Now, under our ECAE policy, we're trying to keep our similarity index under 15%, but it also states that that is after we've removed instances of 2% or less. So we're going to use this exclude small matches, and we're going to come into the percentage. Now, the percentage you want to use here to get under 2% is we're going to use 2.9%. When we're actually in an individual report, you would put it in as 3. It doesn't actually read the points, but we want to make sure it is actually going to take 2% and below. So I found using the figure 2.9 is the appropriate way of dealing with that here. Here we've got a repeat of are the students able to see the originality report. This enable translated matching is nothing to do with us at the moment. It's only to do with some other languages, and it's really when we've got material submitted in the other language. We want to leave the papers being submitted to the standard repository. Don't change that one. If it goes to no repository, we lose the material. So that's making sure that it's going into our ECAE repository and that it's cross-checked. And the rest of these things are still much the same as we've seen on the other one. We leave them as they are. So I'm going to click submit, and we'll close Turnitin. So we've come back in here, and we're all done with what we've got in here, so we can just click on save. Now, material that has been submitted into the Turnitin area, let's go and have a look at another one that's actually been dealt with already, because some of those criteria that we were working on, we'll view submissions, we can change on the fly with an individual submission, but we need to create those overall settings before students are putting material in, otherwise it becomes quite difficult. So let's have a look at this cover sheet here. If I click on the little color, it takes me to the Turnitin report. Now what I was working with here was trying to create a cover sheet that would not generate a response that would try and get through as 0. I've worked out a way of doing that now, but this one doesn't. So this one here is finding the text that I've got in these little boxes, and it's linking it over here to what it's found on the internet for those very generic bits of text. If I click on this little filter area here, you see I've got the ability to change how this is working in the same way I did it in the overall settings on the new one that I created. I can exclude quotes, I can exclude the bibliography, and I can set the match for the percentage. So if I was going to be doing this manually, I would be coming through and putting the figure in there of 2, and I would be ticking this, and then I'd apply those changes, and that would then theoretically, and then we get this warning all the time if we're excluding quoted material. It's said it's going to be more than 30% of the text. Well, yes, that's the case. And now that's brought my level down to 0 because it's seen that these things here are in quotation marks, so it's managed to ignore those. Okay, so that was in this little filters area here, and if I want to, I could untick those and apply the changes and start to bring that back, so it's come back here. Now if I'm wanting to follow through on what I'm getting or where this material is coming from, I can click on this little arrow here and I can find out these are all the different places where that same text is popping up. Well, it's a very generic text, so you'd expect it to be popping up in lots of different places as it does. So I could try and exclude some of those sources, where I can say I don't want it to come from these, and it'll then go away and check and find it's coming from a whole lot of other ones. But since it's such a generic text, it's going to get it from too many places. So what instead we're hoping to do is to say, right, we don't want this material to be an issue. What we're going to do is we're going to come back and say, right, with a filter, we'll either get it because we're picking up short sequences of words, or it's less than 2% of the current material, and therefore we can exclude it. Okay, so that's what we're looking at trying to do there. Certainly picking it up with the quotes is one way, picking it up if it's in the bibliography, and then saying we don't want to be worried about a 2% match, which is what ECA guidelines are currently letting us work with. Once we apply all of those changes, we'll find that we have a better version in the plagiarism Turnitin check that won't set you off searching too soon. At the moment, if you're seeing something having set all of those different parameters, if you're seeing something that comes back from Turnitin at over 15%, you are required to go and investigate and decide what's going on there.